Now we would like to welcome Rafael Waters, who is chair of Uppsala Water and is a member of the Uppsala City Parliament. Now we go to the local level, to Uppsala itself. How is the climate in Uppsala? How can we cut 14% carbon emissions each year? You have got a very difficult question, you too. And we wish you lots of luck in responding to it. Welcome.
Thank you, Anna-Karin. Right, so my name is Rafael Waters. I'm a professor of electricity, but today I am your local politician. So if you brought tomatoes, it's a good time, I think, to bring them out. And actually, before going into what I want to talk about, I want to make it a little bit more uncomfortable.
Closer to microphone.
Okay, that's right, that works much better. Well, before going into what I want to talk about today, I want to make it a little bit less comfortable for you as well, because I would like to challenge you to do a better job in challenging us as local politicians. Why do you only write to me when there's an increase in the water tax or something like that? Why don't and you wonder why we worry about these economical issues all the time. It's because the only time we hear from you is when there's some sort of raise in the local tax. So please, we're just people. I mean, I spend time, every time I get a message, an email from someone who's angry, I spend time trying to deal with that. It's one person out of 200,000 in Uppsala, and I spend time on that person. I would much rather that it was questions about the future, our future, and that I can forward these emails from you to the people who work for me in the local municipality and say to them, well, hey, it's not me only who wants to change these things. Look, I get all this pressure. Now you need to help me answer how we can reach our sustainability targets faster. So I challenge you to challenge us a little bit better. Right. It's been a very interesting day. I've been here since the morning, and I think we talked a lot about the why questions in the beginning of the day, like why should we care and why are we doing this? And I'm hoping that now, towards the end here, that I can get into a little bit more of the how. So to give you an example of in the case of Uppsala, of how we can actually start solving these questions and how we can move the mountains. And Uppsala is just a little mountain in the global scale, but it is a little mountain at least. Right, so this is something we're extremely proud of in Uppsala, is that last year the World Wildlife World Wildlife Foundation nominated Uppsala to be the best city in the world when it comes to climate. So and you can see the other previous winners there. So you're sitting there. You're sitting in it. You're sitting in one of the best cities in the world when it comes to climate mitigation, and that's really fast. Yeah, I see a frowning face. And I see several frowning faces, and it's like, that's really great. That's really cool that you're here, and you can take part of that and see what that is. On the other hand, if we're not reaching the targets, what does that say about the rest of the world? So it can be both intriguing and interesting, but also a bit scary, I think. But of course, this is really good for us to mobilize around and to build this. And build this story of Uppsala to help us move forward. Is that we need stories like this. As politicians, we also need these stories. And these are just some of the words from the jury. I won't stay too long on that. Okay, so what our visions are in Uppsala is that we have two goals. And it's to be fossil-free by 2030 and to be climate positive by 2050. And I'm going to spend most of my time talking about kind of digging into that a little bit to see what does this mean. Because if you just read it like that, if we're fossil-free by 2030, why does it take another 20 years to take a kilo of coal and dig it into the ground and become climate positive?
11 years.
11 years?
11 years?
From if our goal is 2030 to be fossil free.
Yeah, that's only...
That's 11 years. Yeah. But then going from fossil free to climate positive,
That is 20.
we're saying it takes 20 years. So if you only read this text here, it sounds a little bit strange why it takes 20 years to go from zero fossil fuels to just kind of, build a house of wood and then you become climate positive, right? So I want to dig into a little bit what that means, the definitions, the Uppsala definitions of being fossil free and climate positive. And my goal, because actually there is a camera here, camera today, but I'm still going to try to be honest with you. So ask tricky questions later, right? Okay, fossil free by 2030. That says that no later than 2030, emissions of greenhouse gases from energy use, transport, and work machines within the geographical area of Uppsala municipality shall be zero and based on renewable energy sources. Okay, lots of words. If we instead try to describe the same thing in these types of pillars, what that means is that, we have to add something on top of these pillars, because we also have import of goods, food, and construction material, which increases the amount of fossil fuels emissions, carbon dioxide emissions that we have. So, right. So this is in Swedish, but it's basically the first one it's energy, it's transport, it's farming and animals. It's long distance travel, and then we have these green pillars to the right, which is the goals that we're trying to reach. Right. So our first goal, the being fossil free by 2030, it doesn't include the entirety of these pillars. It only includes part of them. And these lower two colors of these pillars is what we describe when we have defined being fossil free in Uppsala by 2030. To be honest, this is what it is. So it is basically all of the use of energy, all of the energy use in Uppsala, and also all of the transport that's happening in Uppsala. It's still a challenging, but yes. And okay, so I promised I'd say something about how to get there. So when it comes to reaching this first of our goals, then this is how we perceive that we will reach this target. When it comes to the energy sector, actually, we are pretty close to reaching that goal. We are the Vattenfall, that is the owner of the power plant in the city. They are actually shutting down their peat-powered power plant and converting it or building a new one that's based on only biofuels. So when this shift is happening, then we will actually step away in a very large part from fossil fuels. When it comes to the transport sector, then we're seeing that it will be electrification and biofuels, and Uppsala is already, the municipality is already taking steps to be the forerunner in this. And we have biogas production, for example, in the city, and we have had that for a long time. But there's a challenge to this, and the most challenging parts when it comes to transport is the heavy transport and work machines. When it comes to plastics, it's also a part of reducing the carbon dioxide emissions, because a large part of when we burn waste in the power plant to create heat in the city, then it's quite a lot of plastics. In about 30% of the energy that we create heat from is actually based on plastics, which is fossil fuel based. So that's the challenge of how we can move away from plastics. One such thing that we're doing in Uppsala is that we're moving towards, we've taken a decision to have paper bags for food waste instead of plastic bags that we've had so far. So that's one small step, but this is an area where all of society needs to step in. It's not the municipality can take first steps, but the plastic is being used all over the place, and then it ends up in the garbage, and then we burn it. Right. Right. So save your questions for later and your criticisms, but so this is what how we view this. Climate positive by 2050. Okay, so these are some steps along the way, but basically by 2050 we want to be climate positive. And what does this mean when we look at these pillars instead? Well, when we talk about the 2050 goal for Uppsala, then we're looking at all of it, all of the emissions from Uppsala, the geographical area of Uppsala, all the carbon dioxide emissions. So we're not being maybe as brave as we could for 2030, but for 2050 we have set this goal instead. And this is a little bit more difficult to tell you how to reach these goals. It's we can talk about carbon sinks in terms of building in using more wood when we build our city, and we can talk about biocoal, for example, as well, as I'm sure you've heard about. But we can also talk a lot about improving the economy, to have a more circular economy, where waste is turned into resources instead. So we don't have to have this plastics coming into the city. We use them and then we throw the plastic away and then we burn it up. Maybe we can create something of the waste and not have to move so quickly to combustion and these fossil emissions. There are a lot of challenges when it comes to the 2050 goal that I want to be honest about. And I mean, when it comes to consumption, food, and long-distance travel, you can imagine that a city like Uppsala, the municipality, we don't own this. We're not the owners of these challenges and the solutions. Please tell me that I'm wrong and tell me how to do it. But of course, we're free to buy products and food and travel wherever we want, which is a good thing. But we have this is difficult for the city. So we have a goal that by 2050, but we don't really own the problem in total. So that's a challenge for us. But of course, the municipality will take a lead in this, and we can work with incentives and nudging, and because of course practical and economic, the practical and economic choice should align with our sustainability goals. And we are now working on a climate action roadmap for Uppsala, and it's not finished yet. But during the next couple of years, we are developing this roadmap so that we know what to do to get to where we need to go. How much more time do I have?
It's good now.
I've said enough, right?
Yeah.
I think this is maybe the most important things that I need to say anyway. So I'll stop here and thank you very much.
I was at the combined heat and power plant just the other week with the summer school, and Vattenfall are taking away the power generation from the plant, and they are not installing a turbine in the new plant. And of course, you're only a politician. You don't own Vattenfall, but can't Uppsala politicians tell Vattenfall that we need that power? We're losing 100 megawatts, I think. It's terrible. We're losing 100 megawatts of green power in a major city in Sweden. That's a big loss.
Well, it's peat, so it's actually fossil fuel. So we're losing 100 megawatts of fossil fuel power in the city.
Peat is torvströ,
Torv,
for those who would like to have a Swedish translation.
And it used to be a debate about peat and if it was renewable or not, because torv, well, it's moss basically, but it takes about like 8,000 years for it to complete one cycle. So in terms of us trying to solve this problem, it's fossil. Right. So no, it's a good question, because there are so many other things that tie into this. We have a capacity problem in Uppsala. We can't get enough electricity to the city, and by removing 1/3 of the need in Uppsala, we need 300 megawatts basically. If we're removing 1/3 of that, of course, that's a challenge. And Vattenfall has, to answer your question, Vattenfall has and Uppsala has not talked about some sort of combined economic model to make this work. And that's the one criticism that I've had, and I talked to both sides, and I think actually they should think about it. But what I would like to ask back to you then is, are you prepared to continue burning fossil fuels in Uppsala for another 5 to 10 years while we are strengthening the electric grid so we can get more renewable energy here, or not? You're shaking your head, so maybe not.
No,
This is the balance here.
They just need to build a turbine for the waste incinerations. They're closing down the fossil, which is good, but they must build a turbine at the waste incineration part, which is 100 megawatts. That they don't do that investment, and that's very sad.
They might build a smaller turbine, but 30. But it's they don't see the economy in it. So this gets complicated. Vattenfall is owned by the Swedish government. It's all of us. It's our utility company, but they have requirements on them to make quite big revenues for the state each year, which makes it so that it's not profitable for them to build a turbine in Sweden to help us with converting to a renewable power system in Uppsala. So it's kind of strange that these things aren't better communicated, and it's frustrating for me too. I don't have a better answer than I'm also talking to people about it.
Yes, next question.
Yes, I'm very glad that we also have politicians here today, alongside with the faith communities. And from a society perspective, you can see the faith communities as part of the civil society. And what I felt during the 2015 big wave of migrants and asylum seekers to Sweden was that civil society and ordinary people in Sweden took a lot of responsibility. And that responsibility, as I heard, was not really acknowledged by the politicians, who rather felt that, our structures are failing, our system cannot cope with this huge wave of immigrants. While ordinary people said that, I have a bed and you have a bed and here is a school and here is a church, we need to do something. And I feel somehow the same when I hear politicians talk about the climate crisis. I think you should trust ordinary people and civil society a lot more and have a dialogue and spread responsibility, because people are ready to take responsibility if they are given it. That's my opinion.
I agree. I think that we are as politicians, sometimes we are very afraid. And then we look at an example such as in France with what's it called, the yellow vests, and we see that as the truth for how people will react if we move too fast with environmental reforms. And I think that was just a really badly communicated environmental reform. So I think we can do much better. And I do believe I believe in people, and that we can have political ideas that even though that people will understand, even if it hurts, And I would love to get into that more in detail, so maybe another time.
We have one more question up here, and that will be the last one before the final panel.
Hi, so I was just wondering about some more of the specifics for this plan and kind of the safety nets set up for it. What happens if the city doesn't meet some of these deadlines, like the 2030 and then climate positivity by 2050? And just kind of from gathering kind of information from problems going on abroad, like in America, where disinformation about climate change has been very prevalent, and all that. Are there any specific areas of this plan that outline how to get objective climate science into the community, as well as into the generation's hands that will be kind of overseeing a lot of this in 2050? So if you could just give more information about some of these safety nets.
Well, one of the safety nets is that each year, according to our environmental and our plan, the progress is being reported, and all of this is being reported to the municipality, to the what's it called in kommunstyrelsen. What's that in Swedish?
The community council.
Yeah, we can say that.
The board.
So yeah, like the board of the politicians in the city. So feedback is one safety net. Is that we are continually getting information each year of how are we meeting these targets. But then other safety nets, I'm not sure. I mean, I think if we don't reach these goals, then we will have problems with I mean, we're building the city right now to be to try to be resilient and robust to like droughts and heavy rainfall. But right as of right now, we are assuming that the whole world will manage and reach the 2-degree goal. So when we're preparing the city for heavy rainfalls and droughts, then we're probably aiming a little bit too low, I think. I'm hoping not, because I'm hoping that we can reach the 2-degree target. But if we don't, then we're actually building the city with too many hard surfaces and such and such. But the answer is the only safety net that I can think of right now is that we have a continual feedback of how we're progressing.
I think we will ask Ribbing to formulate a letter to Vattenfall.
I'm already on it.
You're on it, good. And then we distribute it for the list with other information so that we all can write to Vattenfall. I think we have to take some action. If we are moving mountains, we have to do it together. You know the biblical story about the loaves and the fishes, where there were many. Jesus fed many 5,000 people on 2 fishes and 5 loaves of bread. The secret about that is helping one another with what we can. Moving mountains. Thank you, Rafael.